Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Leap. Thank you so much for being here with us this week. I'm so excited to introduce my guest. This has been scheduled for a while, and I've really been looking forward to it. I am bringing you Tiphany Kane here today, and she is a mom of two boys, Evan and Max, and she is also a coach of Heck Yes Coaching. And she comes to us today with her own story of grief and loss of her best friend. And we will be talking about that story. And then we will be moving into how do we say heck yes when we really have gone through something truly traumatic. So welcome to the show today, Tiphany.
Thank you. Thank you. I am just so thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for giving me this platform and this beautiful space to talk about somebody who I love very much. So thank you.
Well, let's go ahead then. Let's just jump right into your story of your friend, because I think, my listeners know that what I love to have here are these really beautiful, expansive conversations of how our life can transform from some of our darkest experiences. So please talk to us about your best friend and what happened.
I would love to. So her name is Noni. And we became best friends in middle school. We were immediate best friends. We were both as nerdy can get. In fact, our favorite thing to do was to get together and sit on the floor of her bedroom and read. And she was my friend that had those young adult novels that I wasn't allowed to read, but she had them in her house. And so I loved going to her house and sitting on her floor and reading. And we would literally sit side by side and read for hours. And it was our favorite thing to do. That's how nerdy we are. And we just had a blast. And we called each other twins because she's Noni and I'm Tiphany. And that's how dorky we are. We're the knee twins. And it's kind of funny because I'm as Caucasian as it comes and she's African American. And we would tell everybody we were twins and they would be a little confused, but we were so adamant about it that they believed us. So it was great. We had a blast and basically grew up together and truly loved each other like sisters. Absolutely. I probably loved her more than my own sisters. I don't know. Sorry, sisters. But it's that bond, that friendship, that kindred spirit where you're so deeply intertwined with each other and so in sync with each other. And yeah, so we truly loved each other. And as adults, our lives kind of took us on a little bit of a different path. We were supposed to move together to Seattle. We were going to be moving. And at the last minute, she decided to stay in Florida where I grew up. And I said, well, I'm ready to move. I'm all packed. I'm ready to go. So I moved out to California instead and started over from scratch. But we stayed in touch. She had a son shortly after that. And we just, it's an absolutely beautiful long distance friendship and getting back together and as if no time ever passed. And so here I was having my second child. I was just a couple weeks pregnant with my second child. And I called Noni to let her know, Noni, I'm pregnant. Oh my goodness. And she said, well, I have breast cancer. So it was that conversation of both of us, something momentous happening in our lives, but very, very different. What she didn't know at the time is she had the BRCA gene. And so when they initially treated her breast cancer, they didn't treat it correctly. And she had a very, very aggressive form of breast cancer.
Can you back up for just a minute
Sure.
and explain to us what that is?
So the BRCA gene, so it's, I don't know the technical term for it, but basically where you're genetically predisposed for breast cancer and it's very hormonal. So I believe it's fueled by estrogen, if I'm not incorrect on that. And so basically your whole reproductive system becomes a cancer creating organism in your body. And you have to treat that cancer very, very differently than any other kind of cancer. And they didn't realize it. They didn't test her. I could get on my soapbox about how African American women are treated in the medical system. Funny thing is, she was in the medical system. She worked for a hospital, but still didn't get the care that she needed. And they didn't bother to test her. And her cancer treatment, she went through the whole chemo treatment and it didn't touch her cancer. And her cancer got more and more aggressive. Long story short, she went through everything. Basically, they finally found the BRCA gene. She went through radical mastectomy, radical hysterectomy. And 6 weeks after her hysterectomy, I was in Florida visiting her. And she said, Tiphany, I found another lump. This was her third round with chemotherapy. This would be her third round with chemotherapy.
So can you help us understand time frame? So
Sure.
from the time she was diagnosed going through this third round of chemo, how much time had passed at this point?
18 months.
And
Yeah.
so were you sort of on this road with her? Because I know you guys
Yes.
lived in separate places. You guys were in constant communication.
Constant communication. My childhood home is Florida. All my family still lives there. So I go back a lot. And yeah, constant communication. The joy of texting and phone calls, like we were constant, and Facebook and everything. Like we were in constant connection with each other, and then get to physically see each other several times a year because I would go back to Florida a lot. One of my greatest memories after she found the cancer for the third time, I was the first person she told, by the way, that she found a lump. She hadn't told her husband yet. And I was back in Florida for my grandfather's funeral. So it was one of those, again, momentous events in both of our lives happening at the same time. And we decided, you know what? We're going to do a girls' weekend together. We're going to spend some really special time. So in February, we did a girls' weekend. We went to the Pink concert together with her son. And we just had a beautiful weekend staying on the beach and just being us. And it was the most beautiful experience ever. And by May of that year, she had passed away. She passed away on May 15th. A week before her son walked in his graduation ceremony.
Tiphany, I just want to say that, I'm sitting here listening to you because, all of us listening, all of us have a best friend, or I hope that we have that. And I often say, I can't imagine what I would do without my BFF. I call her my sister. And so before we leap ahead into this journey of grief and loss, what was going on for you when your friend told you that there was a lump? What was happening for you internally?
I have pretty strong intuition. And I knew that was it. I was going to be saying goodbye to her. I knew it. Yeah. So I made sure to spend as much time with her as I possibly could because she was absolutely the most important person in my life besides, my children. And anyway, I had the gift of spending time with her when she was in the absolute height of her illness. I took my spring break. I was a teacher and I took my spring break and went out and spent it with her in April. And her poor body, Susan, I gotta tell you, it was as if I felt like I was on the set of a really bad horror movie with really bad costume makeup. Like nobody's body could look like this. She had what I called her Iron Man tumor. She had a giant tumor the size of the palm of your hand in the middle of her chest that was open, festering, horrible wound. She had 25 quarter-size tumors surrounding that, going all down her torso. Also horrible, open, festering, painful wounds. And then I stopped counting at 50, the pea-size tumors that she had going all through her torso. She's a very slender, beautiful person and always very slender, thin wrists and everything. And her poor arm was so swollen, it looked like a 400-pound man, her arm. She couldn't move it. It was so swollen because her lymph nodes were so destroyed from the cancer. What killed her was that Iron Man tumor wrapped around her heart and basically suffocated her heart. And the cancer also went to her brain at the very end. So it was a very painful death for her that while I was there, I encouraged her to get put on hospice care because she was in such excruciating pain. She knew that getting put on hospice care meant she was saying goodbye, but the pain was too much. So I feel very fortunate that while I was there, I was able to help her, gather the resources to get her put on hospice care and get her the comfort of a morphine pump and all of that. I wasn't the only one helping her with that. Her husband and everything was. So, I'm not the sole reason she got on that, but I was part of, saying you need to be on the morphine pump. You deserve some relief from this pain. And, her just saying, but that means I'm saying goodbye to everybody. And, us saying, well, we don't want you to leave, but it's okay. Like it's okay. And
it's the hardest part, isn't it? I mean, I had a dear
Yeah.
friend, he was 50 and he had esophageal cancer. And it was stage 4 by the time they found it and gave him like 9 months to live. And I think he lived a year and a half. And at the very end, it was the tumor in the eye. I mean, so you're bearing witness to this. He was also deeply afraid of leaving. He didn't want to leave, right? He didn't want to leave his wife and his daughter and his friends. And I know that for me, to bear witness to the physical manifestation of this cancer taking this human that I love, and also trying to hold that space for this person who I loved and didn't want to leave. And so what was it like for you to hold those two things at the same time? This friend that you love, that she is leaving, and her hope and her fear and all of the things that it's so hard to sort of give in and say, my time here is over. Like, how do you, as that best friend, how were you able to hold both of those things at the same time?
I think seeing the pain, the incredible pain she was in, every fiber of my compassion just said, it's okay. You can let go now. I didn't necessarily want her holding on because what she was holding on to was excruciating pain. Her body had been totally taken over by this cancer. And, watching somebody you love in that kind of pain, you don't want them to hurt anymore. You don't. And you would do anything to help them not hurt anymore. If I could help her not hurt and she could be alive, that would be awesome. But that just wasn't the case. That wasn't where she was at. It was very, very apparent that there was nothing else that could be done. There was no surgery. There was no chemo. That this, it was time to make peace with saying goodbye. And so I think that's what you have to do, is you have to make peace with saying goodbye. And I think the beauty of our friendship is that all of the things we needed to do and all the things we needed to say, we did that because we cherished each other through so much of our life, that it wasn't like coming to her death was, oh my God, I didn't get to say this to you and I didn't get to do that with you. I mean, there are a ton of things I didn't get to do with her, of course, but at that point, we got to spend a lot of beautiful time together and spend some beautiful memories together. And I'm eternally grateful for those. And it was a peaceful, painful, but peaceful goodbye of, you deserve comfort. You deserve to not be in pain anymore.
But how were you? I mean, I'm asked this question all the time. Do you think it makes a difference if there's a long goodbye where you get to say all the things? Or, is there a difference between that kind of death versus very quick traumatic death? And I think that those two grief journeys can look very different from what people have told me.
Yeah.
So the next piece of this story will be, of course, the after, right? All the things that happened after, because I know her death really changed the whole trajectory of your life.
Yes.
And was very transformational. Before we go there, though, can you talk a little bit about how were you taking care of yourself? And I say this sort of like half smiling, because how do you really take care of yourself when you are losing somebody that you love so deeply? But do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
What were you doing during this time when you were trying to remain strong for your friend who you love? This friend is dying. what was happening for you? Were you just sort of like, you didn't have time to think about yourself? Or were you really trying to do some intentional things to keep present and allow this process to happen?
It's a little bit of a mixed bag. I was at a very personally painful point in my life. I was in a very toxic marriage, and part of going through this process with Noni was learning how to honor myself as well. When you're in a toxic marriage, you're not honoring yourself or taking care of yourself. There is no self-care when you're allowing yourself to be in a toxic, abusive situation. And so one of the gifts of these last days with Noni was learning that I deserved love and care as she deserved love and care. And that my greatest honor to her would be to care for myself. So it's a mixed bag because the grief, absolutely intense. I mean, here I am 8 years later and telling her story, tears come to my eyes. And, I miss her as much today as I missed her the day after she passed away. I was telling you before we even came on, I still can't delete her phone number from my phone or get rid of those last messages she left me. In fact, her Facebook is still alive. Like, her ex-husband can't take it down. And he's remarried and gone on to, have a beautiful life. And we're so happy he was so good to her. But all of us, we just can't get rid of those pieces of her because she was so special.
I want to pause there for a minute because I think this comes up a lot too. My brother is everywhere in my life. My friend who I lost is everywhere in my life. And I remember this boy when I was doing grief and loss groups at the Center for Grieving Children, how he said he still texts his sister. He would text her on his phone. And so for me, I don't know what your spiritual beliefs are, but I'm imagining they're the same, that your friend's spirit lives on and you can share that. But knowing that they're not here physically, but I believe with all of my heart that their energy lives on. And so for me to have a conversation with my brother feels very normal to me. Tell us your beliefs.
Well, that opens a whole nother can of worms there. Noni and I were raised in a really challenging religious situation. We were raised in a cult, and that's part of why we became so close together, and we both left it. And so my spiritual beliefs, it comes with a lot of history. And I do not have traditional spiritual beliefs as everybody else does. But like you said, I do believe in energy and all of that. I wouldn't say I'm a person of like religious faith. I don't have really any trust in religion, but I am a spiritual person. I am spiritual. So yeah, you won't see me walking into a church ever, but nature is my church. So as far as my spiritual belief goes, yes, her energy, like, we're all connected. We're all absolutely connected. I kind of like to look at it as, how the earth, every continent is connected under the ocean. Like, we can't see it, but all of the continents are connected, but they're all moving, but they're all connected and growing and changing and expanding. And I feel like that's how we all are. Some of us you can see and some of us you can't see, but we're all connected. And so her energy, in whatever way, whether she came back, in a different form, or her energy is just kind of around us. Yeah, somewhere. I don't know all the answers. I'm fully aware I don't know all the answers, but I know she's around in some way, shape, or form. That's my
exactly
spiritual feeling.
That's me too, right? We are collective consciousness. We are all one.
Yeah.
Like, that is my deepest belief too. So let's move into the transformational pieces that happened to you after the death of your friend, which, by the way, we didn't get a chance to talk about that, but I think that gives me a much better understanding of just how tight the two of you were, given the fact that you had this, sorry, but I'll call it abusive, cults are abusive, that you had this incredibly traumatic experience as children, and that you also were able to be released from that, or got out of that, or escaped that, or whatever you want to call it. So that in and of itself, I think, is quite remarkable. So talk to us about after you lost your friend and what that story looked like for you. Because I know you made a lot of pretty big changes.
A lot of big changes. So the day she died, her husband lovely human being sent me a text. We just lost Noni. It was about 6 a.m. It was a Friday, and I was on my way to work. And so I called my then husband and let him know Noni passed away. They're having the funeral on Tuesday, and I would really like to go back to Florida for the funeral. And his answer to me was anything but kind. I won't say word for word, but it was basically, how could they be selfish enough to do it during the week? You're a busy person. I'm a busy person. You're not spending money to go. You're not spending our money to go there. And no, you can't go to her funeral. And that was the switch for me. That was the switch. I realized he was absolutely not my person and absolutely not there for me. And he continued to not be there for me in some really terrible ways, which I'm not going to get into, but made it very clear that he was not supporting me in my grief in any way, shape, or form. Called my father. My father made sure I got tickets to get out there. So basically, I went to her funeral without quote unquote permission. When you're married to a toxic abusive person, you need permission to do things. And I defied him and went to her funeral anyway. And that was really the first time I had done anything like that and stood up for myself, right? And said, no, this is important to me and I will be there. And that act of being there for her and being there for her family and her friends and being able to surround myself with that changed me forever. I stood up for myself, and it started me on a trajectory of being able to say, this relationship isn't working for me. This isn't a healthy place for the children. This isn't a healthy place for me. And within a year, divorce papers were signed. We were out. It was within a couple months that I started the process.
I have to stop you for a second. That's incredible. So here you've lost your best friend, and I call her a sister because I know that that is how I feel about my dearest, closest group.
Yeah.
You've lost your sister. You are deep grief. You are a mother of 2 young children, and you have this abusive husband that you're living with. And so is that what happened? Were you like, because I think about my own grief, like numb almost. Did you just feel fueled by this grief and loss? Like, why the light bulb? Was it your husband telling you you couldn't go to the funeral? Like, what was that trigger? Because I know for so many people, when they are grieving, change is almost the very last thing they have the energy to do. And this is massive undertaking to leave, because I can't imagine that that was a picnic, right? Like,
no, it was absolutely horrible. Anybody knows, anybody who's lived through an abusive relationship, a toxic relationship, sometimes you don't even realize that that's what you're in, right? It's the lobster boiling in the pot, right? Like, you don't realize till it's too late that, oh my gosh, this is really bad. So I had known for a while that things were not good. It was losing her that basically opened my eyes to say, this is not the life I can live anymore. Anybody who is not my person in my greatest time of grief, like, I can't with that person, you know? So it did fuel me in a way. It fueled me because when the person you love can no longer be here, it's almost like, well, I need to live my best life in their honor. They can't be here. And so I better frickin' just put my big girl panties on and live the absolute best life I possibly can. I need to take life by its horns. I was walking around in a horrible gray fog of really, truly not living, right? Both my children they're wonderful, beautiful, amazing, but they're neurodivergent. And so there's a lot of challenges that come with that. So between the therapy and all of the challenges of being a mother to these 2 children that have very special challenges, the abusive relationship and all of that, I was absolutely living in a fog and didn't know who I was or what was important to me. And losing her just made me say, I have to figure out who I am and what's important. I immediately joined a support group for abused women and went through a 12-week course on what it means, you know, to be abused. It was a group therapy course. Absolutely the best thing I ever went through. I went into it kind of kicking and screaming, I'm not abused. I'm not abused. And then, you know, oh my God. And it was the best thing. And just immediately started the process of like, I don't have time to waste. I don't have time to waste. So I'm doing this. I deserve being alone and healthy is so much better than being in a marriage and unhealthy. And I was in a place where I was on 12 different medications. I had been in and out of the hospital myself. I'd had a code stroke called on me myself. And it's one of those, like, I was dying. My body was failing me. And losing Noni really made me realize, okay, I've got to change things because this can't be the path I'm on. This isn't my life. I can't do this.
You know, it's really interesting what you're saying. I have a friend who is also a medium, and she's really incredible. And she said to me once, she said, she said, we can try to trick ourselves all we want, but the body knows you can't fake the body. You can never fake the body because it will manifest in some way in our body.
Oh, yes.
And so it's interesting that you use that language because you can't outrun the truth, right? Like the actual truth of what is happening and that emotional turmoil and that stress and all of the things we can try, but until we're really able to face, because when we face it, we have to do something about it. And that's the scariest part, is taking action. But, I always say the inaction is actually what exhausts us.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Right? It's the thinking about it and the fears that only live in the future and all of the stuff that debilitate us. That's what's exhausting.
Yes.
You take the first step and suddenly one door after another seems to swing wide open when we're ready to walk through. So you leave your marriage. You are now kind of coming to terms with, oh my God, I've been in this abusive relationship. Because when I was listening to you, I was wondering, did you know you were in this abusive relationship? Like, did your girlfriend, did Noni?
Yeah, she did not like him at all.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
She had no qualms about letting me know that she did not like him.
Okay. So, and were you the excuse maker? Did you make a bunch of excuses for him?
Of course. Love is hard. Love is difficult.
Right.
He's got this going on. He's got that going on. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Of course you do that.
Right.
Of course you do that. Anybody who is listening to you right now that is in a toxic, abusive relationship, know that I have so much compassion for you, because abusers are so good at breaking you down till you're in ashes, and then wrapping you up in their arms and, oh, I am so sorry that you're feeling this way. Let me heal you. Let me make you better. And then they're suddenly the heroes. They're suddenly the protectors. They're suddenly the ones that you can't live without, because they're the ones putting you back together. Right. And it's this horrible cycle of being broken down as far as you can go. And then that person is like, oh, but we're meant to be together, and I can heal you. I can make you better. And you don't realize that toxic cycle that you are in. It's very hard.
Well, you don't realize that they're the hammer, right? Like the visual that came is that you're the vase and he's the hammer, and he breaks you into a million pieces and he glues you back together. And that you are now this, you're this fractured human, and you are wounded, and they caused the damage. And now they're trying to provide comfort. It feels crazy making, because it is.
It is crazy making.
Absolutely. And it feels confusing because it is, especially when you love this human being. When you love this human being and you want it to be different.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head, and all of it. It's crazy making. And yes, you usually do love that person. You do. And so many times empaths end up with narcissists. It's like somehow we're magnetized to each other.
Yes.
And it's horrible. It's the most horrible magnetic combination you can possibly have, because you're so empathetic. You see all of the good, and you see who they can be, and you see the potential, and you have so much love for that human inside that, and you understand their pain. And they answer back, not with compassion and love, but with, I'm going to destroy you. And then I'll also be the person to put you back together so that you think you can't live without me. It's just a horrible cycle. So I just want to say to listeners, I have so much compassion for you and you can get out. All you have to do is step out of it. And it will probably be the hardest thing you've ever done in your life. It will be difficult and painful, but you can do it. You absolutely can.
And if you're living with somebody physically abusive, that you may have to take many more other precautionary steps.
Yes.
And the first is call an abuse shelter.
Yes.
I want to just put that out there.
I did that. I got involved in all of that. So I didn't do it alone. I had a therapist. I had the abuse, the abuse shelter, the abuse group. I had all of that stuff. And so when I moved out into a little 1-bedroom apartment. It was 500 square feet with my 2 kids. And I've never been happier. It was so great. It wasn't easy. There's financial hardship. There's all kinds of difficult things, but I was so happy. And I've got to tell you, within a year, Susan, I was off all the medications.
Congratulations.
Right?
Because what it took
totally
for
healthy.
you and what it took for you to get there, right? Mm-hmm. Because what you didn't say is how long you had been married. How long had you been
19 years.
Yeah. So listeners,
years.
I just want you guys to hear it. 19 years. It's a long, long time. And by the way, no shame, no guilt. And even if you choose to stay with a narcissist, but I think that what I love that you are saying, Tiphany, is even sometimes when we feel like we are in a prison, that door, all you have to do is press on it.
Yeah.
For it to swing wide open.
You can get out. And your theme of grief and loss and trauma, I think also can be for a relationship. It doesn't
100%.
have to be a physical death, the death of that love, the death of the dreams you had together, those images of you growing old together and the raising your children together and going to the weddings together. Like you get married with these dreams, you birth these dreams, and then you watch them die when you get divorced. And especially when it's a painful divorce, and so that's a whole nother level of grief as well, grief and loss.
Absolutely. And this show is way beyond just the death of a human, because I say that I think that we're all grieving something all the time. Yes. And whenever there is a new beginning, there is an ending, there is grief.
Yes. Yes. Even when it's a positive beginning.
100%.
Yeah. So I had a positive beginning and I went out there into life and I just said, I don't know who I am, but I'm going to figure it out. And so I did all the things. I joined a running club and I joined a cycling club and I tried outrigger canoeing and I did aerial dance and joined a book club. And I mean, all the things. I ran a couple marathons and I did a 100-mile bike race and I got my master's degree. I just did all the things that I had always wanted to do. I did it in a short time. I was like, boom, I'm just doing it all. And in the course of doing all the things, I figured out what I love and who I am and what I enjoy doing. So now I'm coaching people and it's amazing. I'm the Heck Yes coach.
We need to get to the Heck Yes.
Yeah.
I love that you did all the things, that it was almost like, and I think it's true, when we come out of what you call the fog, it really is. I always think of it as this is super cheesy, but my listeners know I'm cheesy anyway. It's sort of like that butterfly when they are breaking out of the chrysalis, and it's like you really understand what freedom feels like. And you sit there and you're like, I don't understand why I thought I couldn't say yes to this or no to this. Right. And I think the pandemic has helped a lot where people, I think it's because I know with my girlfriends and we talk about like, wow, it's a lot easier to say no to things because, we had to really, we were very isolated for a while, and a lot of exhaustion happened during the pandemic. So talk to us about the idea of being a Heck Yes coach. What does that mean?
So we're all going to get no's in life, everything. We're going to get no's from every angle, right? Whether it's going for a promotion at work and you don't get it, whether it's a relationship ending, whether it's the death of a loved one, whether it's your own health challenges. And these are all things that I've personally experienced, So you're going to get lots and lots of no's in life. And the thing is, I have this visualization The no's are this big giant plate glass window, and you can see outside it, and you see beautiful, luscious oak tree, and there's a picnic going on underneath, and it's a lush picnic. And you want to be out there at that picnic, and you're a fly, right? Like you really want to be at that picnic. You try flying out to the picnic, but you hit the plate glass window. You're like, darn it, there's something in the way. I can't get there. And you just keep hitting it until you're so exhausted, you fall to the sill and you can't try anymore. Right? That's what so many of us do. We get a no and we're like, well, darn it. I'm gonna, and you just keep doing the same thing over and over till you fall exhausted. Well, there's another fly in the room that tries one time. It's like, darn, I can't tell what's there, but there's something stopping me from getting where I want to go. Let me kind of zoom back a little. Let me look around the room. What's happening? Oh, there's an open door over there. Fly out the open door and happily sitting on the turkey sandwich out at the picnic, right? So that to me is what Heck Yes Coaching is about, is we're all going to hit that plate glass window, that brick wall. Life in some way, shape, or form is going to try to stop us, beat us, whatever. Let's take a step back. Let's look around. Are there other ways to get the yes out of this situation? So for example, losing my best friend. I mean, that's a big giant, that's a Great Wall of China wall, right? Like that's a horrible thing to go through. But at the same time, it was the opportunity to step back and reevaluate my life and go, what do I want out of life? What does life mean to me? What do I want for my children? What do I want for myself? Is there another way to go about this than what I've been doing? And taking that time to pause and think, and then look for those other situations. Same thing. I had a job opportunity that I really thought was mine, and I got a no. And I sat down with my boss and I'm like, okay, why was that a no? Because I was sure that was a yes. And she told me, well, Tiphany, you're just too passionate. And I was like, this was the best answer you could have given me.
I'm sorry, but that is a weird answer.
Right. But here's the thing. If she had said, you're not qualified, whatever, then I would have said, okay, that's not exactly a no. That's a get a little bit more, get another degree, get another certification, whatever. She said, you're too passionate. So that's a no because of my personality. And I'm not going to change that. I'm not going to change who I am. I am passionate. And so that no was a gift because it was a no that said, this is truly a brick wall. Some no's are just diversions in the path. Yes, get another certification. Yes, get more credentials or something like that. But this was a no that said, this has to do with who you are at your core. And if you want this job, you have to change who you are at your core. Do you want to bend in pretzels, dim your light for this job?
It's called misalignment, right?
Exactly. And so that was an example of me stepping back and going, maybe this isn't my path. I'd been in this career 20 years, public education. Maybe this wasn't my path. And that's when I decided to go full time into my coaching job. And it was a gift. It was a gift to hear that no, because it let me know, yes, you spent 20 years in this career, but that 20 years you can be so very grateful for. And you can also say, I'm not going to change who I am to continue in this career.
I love that story. What do you feel like your greatest gift has been as a life coach?
The people I come in contact with, I have to tell you, Susan, I am so fortunate that the people in my community are amazing women. I really work with women I call it in your second act, right? Your children are of an age where they're no longer your main concern. You're not chasing after toddlers anymore. You've done everything you're supposed to do. You've gotten all your education. Your career is, where it was supposed to be, but it just doesn't feel right. And so I work with those women that are like, I just don't feel like I'm hitting my dharma, I'm hitting my purpose. And I get to work with them and help them find that. And it is such a gift because these are incredible women that have fantastic stories in their life. And I get to be a part of that. And I get to walk on their journey with them. And really all I'm doing is holding up a mirror and saying, look who you are. Look who you are.
And
this is awesome.
And your passion. I can feel it. Like it just sort of exudes from you, that sort of that light and that aura, because I think too, that we give off a light and aura. And sometimes that has a huge impact on people, even though we can't see it, we can't measure it, but I can feel it with you. And so you are you can be that guiding light of hope. You
Mhm.
can be that physically, right? And cheering people on and guiding them, but you also exude that. I can feel it. That I just have to say that. But
Thank
something
you.
else that you said, I love Dharma. And
Yeah, right.
not everybody knows what that means. So when you talk about our Dharma and our purpose, can you delve a little bit more deeply for listeners who may
Yeah.
not know what that is?
So I like to think of our purpose as that like through ribbon of your life, where it doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter what your career is. I'll take myself as an example. I could be a classroom teacher. I could be teaching adults, teaching a course to adults. I could be coaching somebody. I could be speaking on a stage. The actual physical act of what I'm doing is not my purpose. My purpose is the through ribbon of it all. It is my purpose is I love to teach and I love to make change. I'm a change maker. And if it doesn't matter what I do in this life, as long as those are components of what I'm doing. And so I can find happiness and joy in all kinds of things. Like there are some people where there's one thing they know they're supposed to play soccer and that's the only thing they can do. And if they can't play soccer, they're miserable and they don't know what their purpose is outside of that. And so that's not necessarily dharma. That's something you're good at. That's something you're gifted at. But if you lose it and then you don't know where you're going from there, then that's
Yes.
not your purpose. Your purpose is, even if I lose the thing, I can find something else because my purpose is the through line. To me, that's
Put.
dharma.
It's beautifully put because I think about the musician, right? And if the musician can't play music anymore, there has to be an outlet for that creative energy. It doesn't have to be
Yes.
music. It can be lots of different things. And so the idea of purpose, because I know so many people will say, well, I don't know what my purpose is and I don't know what my passion is. And the question I always ask is what comes as easy to you as breathing, because that is an opportunity to think about what really lights us up. Because I think that what our dharma, that deeper purpose, that energy that needs an outlet, that can be an indicator of.
Yes.
Because I think that what we're really gifted at comes so naturally, we don't necessarily think of it as a gift.
You're right.
We're just like, oh, this is just who I am. This isn't really a gift, but that is our gift. That is our gift. And there's a saying that we all have gifts and it is our purpose to give those away. So I love all of the things that you are saying, and I am looking at time and I've got to wind us down. And my favorite question that I ask at the end is, and I can't wait to hear your answer, given the experiences of your life, what does self-love look like for you?
I love this question so much because it took me so long to learn it. And it will continue to be a lifelong practice. Self-love looks like really strong boundaries. Brene Brown says,
I love her.
I know. But let me get it right. Soft front, strong back, wild heart. Right. And that to me is your boundaries. You're soft, you're approachable. People want to be around you, but that spine, your spine is strong and you're not going to be torn down by life. And you can say yes, and you can say no, and be equally strong in your convictions of both and be healthy with both. Right. So to me, self-love is honoring those strong boundaries. And self-love is also allowing yourself to follow your purpose, your dharma. Like we often don't allow ourselves to follow that. We mistake doing with being. And if we can allow ourselves to be, then true self-love, it goes beyond going and get a manicure. It goes beyond all of that. It's at this moment in time, this is what I need and this is what I want to be. Like I suffer with a lot of anxiety. And so for me, when I'm feeling that anxiety, self-love to me looks like, okay, I need to pause what I'm doing. I'm going to stop. And as a business owner, that's hard to do, to say, I'm taking today off and I'm listening to Law of Attraction in my earbuds as I take a long walk and put healthy food in my body and shut myself off from the rest of the world. And I'm going to show myself self-love by just making sure I take care of my being and just be there centered with myself. And that to me is self-love.
That is so beautiful. Thank you for, this is where I get emotional, just for your time, your truth, your story. And thank you for sharing Noni with us. When I heard her name, I thought Noni, right? That's what we're talking about, to know ourselves, and for your light and what you're doing in the world. And tell us where we can find you.
Well, first of all, thank you for that beautiful, feels like a hug, a virtual hug.
It is a hug, and everybody knows I love to hug.
I do too. So thank you. I'm Tiphany Kane on all of the platforms. So Tiphany spelled a little funny, TiphanyKane. You can find me on all the platforms. I'm most active, Facebook and Instagram. So you can find me there. And then I have a podcast, Radical Audacity in Love and Life, where we look at people that, are doing the hard thing, but the right thing. They're saying, heck yes. Heck yes is usually hard. I'm not going to lie. It's usually the hard path, but it's the right path. And so it's looking at people living in their integrity and making a difference in the world because they're doing that.
Well, I know that I have just started following your podcast, and I can't wait to listen to the episodes. And again, I just want to thank you so much for being here and spending time with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the space. I appreciate it.
And thanks everybody for listening and tuning in this week. And we'll see you guys again next week. Bye for now. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening. If you enjoyed this episode of Leap, please subscribe, share it with others, or leave a rating and review so others can benefit from this content. Be sure to check out the show notes for resources related to this episode. And to catch all the latest from me, you can follow me on Instagram at susan.casey. If you have a transformational story to share on grief and loss, please email me at leapwithsusan@gmail.com. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.